This is Mystical Ariel here to shake the matrix, expand our minds, and make us all think. Glad you're here. Welcome. Doesn't matter what time you've watching this or anything like that, but you're here. And that's what really matters. So, we want to talk about some important things today. And I feel like it's something that we all can value and learn from. It's the presence. Your presence is loud. And who you are as a person, just being, is actually loud. And if we could all come to this place of just being, how much it would change the world around us. See, the other day we spoke about presence. We spoke about what it means to walk into a room and shift the energy without even saying a word. We spoke about, the quiet power of authenticity, the weight of silence, the strength of coherence, and the way truth can be felt before it is understood. But today I want to go even deeper. Deeper because once light enters a room, something else is happening. Something else happens. It does not just soothe. When light enters a room, it reveals. And revelation is not always comfortable. Sometimes truth feels like it's warmth. And sometimes it feels like peace. And sometimes truth feels like pressure because the moment real light arrives, the false cannot even stay hidden or for too long. See, that is what I want to talk about today. Discernment. Shadow. And the courage to stay real when the world around you is still playing games with illusions. The nature of revelation is when people talk about awakening, they often imagine something soft and beautiful. And yes, awakening can be beautiful, but an awakening is also disruptive. Because when you begin to see clearly, when you open your eyes, you no longer can unsee what you have seen. See, you begin to notice the masks. You begin to notice the double meanings. Now, people say one thing but mean something completely different. You begin to notice how much of the human behavior is actually driven by fear, insecurity, pride, and unconsciousness and its performance. And you start seeing the difference between what is true and what only looks true. Well, anyone can say anything. But what are you going to be right down to the grass knuckle of it? And once that happens, once you see clearly, you are no longer living in the same way at all. Because the world does not just become more spiritual. It becomes more transparent. You see the things that you once were blinded to or ignored. And that is why discernment matters, because without discernment, people can actually mistake charm for integrity. I see it all the time. People put on this charm and people think they're great. But they can be mistaken noise for wisdom, and they can mistake performance for even love. And they can mistake excitement for alignment. See, and if you do not have discernment, you will spend your life reacting to appearance instead of reorganizing essence. Yeah. Light exposes shadow. It really does. The reason light unsettles people is not because light is cruel. It's because light reveals shadows. And shadow is not always evil in the dramatic sense. Sometimes shadow is simply just what has been ignored. And you've walked in the room and now they can't ignore it. or it's what has been avoided, or what has been buried, or what has been denied, what has been dressed up and hidden behind social acceptance masks. Well, if I'm liked socially, I must be all right, you know? And when a real person, though, enters the room, those type of people, they do not need to excuse anyone of anything. When a real person is there, they're just being. Their truth is enough. They just stand as they are. Their clarity is enough. Their calm is enough. And that calm can be deeply uncomfortable to those who are built on internal confusion. They'll react. That's why sometimes you have these reactive people and you're like, what the heck have I even done? Because honesty moves the camouflage. You know, it makes it harder for people to stay unconscious. And many people do not actually want to see until they are ready. They want to be admired. They want to be validated. They want to be reassured, you know, but they do not always want to be revealed. So when you walk in the being, you reveal. That is where discernment becomes sacred. Yeah? Because discernment is the ability to see what is truly happening without getting lost in the story people are telling. You know, discernment as spiritual sight. Discernment is not suspicion. It is not even paranoia, and it is not judgment. Discernment is clear. It is the ability to sense what is aligned and what is distorted. It is knowing the difference between a person who is actually present and a person who is only performing presence. It is knowing the difference between a heart that is open and a heart that is using openness as a strategy. It is knowing the difference between truth and emotional manipulation. Yeah, this is one of the greatest lessons on the spiritual path, is because not everything that feels powerful is pure. Because not everything that feels loving is even love. And not everything that it feels elevated is wise. You know, I appreciate your questions, but we're going to stick on topic here. So not everything that is loud is alive, and you have to learn how to feel beneath the surface. You have to learn how to trust what your deeper self is perceiving. You have to learn how to stop giving your energy to appearances that do not match their essence. And that is part of growing up spiritually. That is part of awakening. And that is part of protecting your peace. You know? It's not about can't answer, it's just choosing not to, dude. And I don't know enough about it to have a discussion on it. And this is not what we're discussing. This is like something completely off of even the topics we're discussing right here. So you come on to this channel, which we're talking about awakening and speaking in truth and being, and then you're throwing in something that has nothing to do with here, and you're expecting me to answer it. And then you use manipulation to try and get a response. You might want to listen to this one. Because it's part of growing up spiritually, and that's part of awakening, is actually coming in truth. And that is part of protecting your peace. See, psychology and projection, psychology helps us understand some of this. A lot of people project what they have not faced themselves. They see something in you that reminds them of something in them. And instead of turning inward, they go outward. They blame, they accuse, they minimize, they manipulate, they distort. And they call you too sensitive, too intense, too much, too deep, too quiet, too direct, too honest. Well, but often what they are actually saying is this. Okay, your presence is activating something I have not yet healed, and you're making me look at it even though you're just being. And that does not mean you are responsible for their healing. It means you have to know the difference between feedback and projection. When somebody's projecting their stuff onto you, and when someone's giving you feedback, sometimes real correction is necessary. Hey. And sometimes you need humility. And sometimes what comes at you is simply someone else's shadow looking for a place to land, for someone to blame. And if you do not understand that, you will spend your life taking ownership of things that were never yours. I used to do that all the time, and it would destroy me. It destroyed my nervous system, my body. And to this day, I'm still battling the things that I once lived in and lived as. See, discernment's a beautiful thing because it matters. Because it helps you ask those right questions. Not why does everybody react to me? Do I feel good? Or do I feel good? I feel not too bad today. But what in them is being activated by the truth I carry? That question changes everything. Staying real in a false world. One of the hardest things we can do in a false world is actually stay real. Because being real costs you, actually. Because you're not there. It costs you popularity. You're not about fitting in. And it may even cost you comfort. And it may cost you access to people who only knew how to relate through performance. It may cost you the illusion of belonging. But what is the alternative? To become a stranger to yourself? To betray your own knowing in order to stay accepted? How are you doing, man? To stay, to wear masks so long that you forget your original face. To be everything everyone else wants you to be, but yourself? No way, man. I mean, there comes a point where the soul says, that's enough. I can't do this anymore. Enough pretending, enough shrinking, enough explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Enough, performance, peace while carrying inner chaos. Enough performing, enough abandoning, enough of your own truth just to keep the room comfortable. Being real is not always easy, right? But it is clean. And there is a peace in being clean that cannot be bought through approval. And that kind of peace comes from alignment. The courage to walk away. The discernment also means knowing when to walk away. Not every situation deserves your energy. Not every person deserves unlimited access to your spirit, and not every invitation is safe. Not every open door is meant for you, and not every battle is yours to fight. Some of the greatest wisdom is knowing when silence is more powerful than argument. Knowing when distance is more healing than explanation. Knowing when to let people misunderstand you because they were never trying to understand in the first place. This is not weakness. This is maturity. Sometimes the most spiritual, powerful thing you can do is leave what is false without needing to destroy it. Because truth does not need to win every argument. Truth just needs to remain true. And you see, that's the very difference. It's a very different energy. A very different posture even. A very different level of power. See, the observer and the witness, one of the deepest shifts in awakening is learning to step out of the first person reactivity and become the observer. And when you are in the first person reaction, everything feels personal. Every comment hits you. Every slight stings, and every misunderstanding becomes a crisis. Every reaction from another person feels like a verdict. But when you become the observer, you begin to see more clearly. You realize that not everything requires a response. You realize that people are often acting from pain rather than truth. And you realize that your job is not to fix every atmosphere you enter. Your job is to remain centered enough to reorganize what is actually happening. That's discernment too. Because the observer is less likely to manipulate by emotional fog. The observer sees patterns. Love you too, man. The observer notices tone. The observer notices contradiction. And the observer notices when someone's words and energy are not the same. You see, once you become that observer, you begin to protect your energy. And you begin to protect it better. And it's not from fear either. It's from clarity. Agnostics understand, see, from agnostic perspective, this world is full of appearance that pass for reality. People are often taught to worship surface status, images, and authority without ever asking whether the thing itself carries truth. But awakening begins when you stop bowing to appearance and start seeking essence. You begin to ask, what is real here? What is false here? What is the interaction actually about? What is this role? What is this mask? What is this system trying to make me forget? And when you begin asking those questions, you are already moving beyond the spell of illusion. And that is why discernment is not optional on the path, it is essential. Hello. Because a soul that cannot discern will keep feeding the machines that keep it asleep. But a soul that can see clearly becomes dangerous to the illusion. Dangerous in liberating way, actually. Because it can no longer be easily controlled. You're not controllable when you're being. See, nature shows us. It teaches us discernment beautifully. I've learned so much from living in the existence of nature, guys. A tree does not, rush towards every storm. It knows how to bend without breaking. A river knows how to move around obstacles without losing its source. And an animal knows the difference between danger and safety by instinct, not by explanation. And humans have that too. We just get trained out of it. We get conditioned even to ignore our knowing. And we get taught to doubt our perceptions all the time. Hello. And we get shamed for seeing what we see, but the body knows, the heart knows, the spirit knows. And when something feels off repeatedly, that is information. When something feels aligned repeatedly, that is also information. See, discernment is learning to listen again. Learning to trust the signals. Learning to stop overriding yourself to keep other people comfortable. The cost of truth. Its truth is beautiful, but it is not cheap. It asks something of you. It asks you to release the addiction to approval. It asks you to let go of your need to be understood by everyone. And it asks you to accept that some people will resist your clarity because they benefited from your confusion. And it asks you to remain grounded when others become reactive. I do this because, you see, I'm an author of 3 books, the Awaken series. And I went into hospice. And I passed in hospice. Paid for my own funeral. I chose to return. And in that return, I chose to teach what sets us free. I decided to teach truth after years of being manipulated into religion. When I learned the truth, that everything is within us, and we hold the keys to our freedom, no one else. And so I said that I would do this. So that's why I'm doing it. It's the real path. And it's not faint for heart, but it is for the soul that is ready to live with fewer lies. Because the more truth you can hold, the less you need performance. Because I spent a lifetime in performance. I spent a lifetime seeking approval, and I destroyed my nervous system over it. I destroyed my health, and I decided no more. And once you know the truth, and you recognize that each and every person is nothing more than a fragmented piece of yourself, then you want everyone to know it. You want every part of you to know that we have the keys to our own prison cells and we can unlock them. If you've been a slave and then no longer you're no longer a slave, then what you want more than is to tell the other slaves how to become unslaved. Because the more truth we can hold, the less performance this world can even do. The more discernment we carry, we develop, the less you get trapped in other people's projections and manipulations. And the more grounded we become, the less the false can control our nervous systems. And the more real we become, the more peace we will carry. So if you've ever felt misunderstood, there may be a reason. If people have reacted strongly to your honesty, there may be a reason. If your presence exposes things others would rather avoid, there may be a reason. And it may be that your light is not the problem. And it may be that your light is actually revealing the problem. And you imagine more of us revealing the problem, then we could solve it now, couldn't we? And that's a big difference. That is actually sacred. That is a part of the calling. So do not be afraid of discernment. Do not be afraid of shadow. Do not be afraid of the moment truth makes things uncomfortable. That discernment may be the beginning of awakening. So stay real. Stay clear. Stay grounded and stay awake. Because the world does not need more performance. That's why we're in all of this mess now. It needs more truth. And when you carry truth without apology, you become one of the people who help break the spell. May you see clearly. May your hearts may you hear beneath the words. May you trust your inner knowing. May you recognize projection without absorbing it, and may you walk from the false without losing your peace. And may you stay open without becoming naive. And may you stay loving without becoming blind. And may you stay real even when the world asks you to perform. And may your discernment become a lantern that guides you through every shadow. May it be your wisdom. May it be in your guide. May you sit in truth. Peace and love. We'll see you guys tomorrow.